When I look back at the men I chose to love, it's clear now. I wasn't choosing with my heart. I was choosing with my trauma. I was a dismissive, avoidant attachment style woman who had no clue of what a healthy, secured attachment style of loving was. Welcome, my loves, to the Hurt, Hardened, and Healed Podcast.
Hey, loves, I'm home. Hey, loves, let's sit on down. Thank you so much, y'all, for inviting me back into your homes again for another episode of the Hurt, Hardened, and Healed Podcast. It's your girl, your healologist, London, and I am here to do what? Help you get to the other side of healing, of course, because that's ultimately where we want to be. We want to make sure that our childhood trauma is not causing adult drama in our day-to-day life. And we all know that based on trauma, it really does give us this identity that wasn't originally our own. Think about it. There's so many people out here in the world that are spazzing and depressed and anxious and going through all these different mood swings because of the trauma that they experience. It's nowhere near the identity of who they really are, but they can't help but respond in that way. So this podcast is to make certain that we peel back those layers, of course with professional help as well, but just to make certain that we are diving into the core of who we really are and not what our trauma has caused us to become. So before we can do any of that, you know what you have to do? You have to take that assessment test. So if this is one of your first episodes of watching the Hurt, Hardened, and Healed podcast, then you don't know about the assessment test that you need to take. Yes, it is very, very important. Oh, wait, where do you think you're going without hitting that subscribe button? And hey, you haven't even taken your attachment style assessment test. That's right. There's an assessment test for you to take, but no worries. It's only 5 minutes. I know you have 5 minutes, just like you have that 1 second to hit that subscribe button. Now, if you haven't seen the previous episodes of the Hurt, Hardened, and Healed podcast, where I explain what an attachment style test is, you're in luck today. It is basically a specific questionnaire that asks questions to determine whether you are secured emotionally or unsecured. Now, when I say unsecure, I don't mean insecure. There's a difference. Trust me. But knowing your emotional status is very important. Just as important as taking care of your mental health. Now, if you don't know where those tests are, no worries. I'm going to link that in the description box below. I'll put about 4 links there. You can choose one of them. Or hell, you can do them all. They all can't be wrong, right? Once you determine what your attachment style is, please be sure to comment it in the comment section. I would love to know. Hey, so get to testing and good luck. Okay, so now that we have been cordially interrupted, we can move further. So this particular episode is very, very dear to my heart because I really want to discuss or really kind of get into the childhood trauma itself. And I think the best way is for me to be a little transparent about my upbringing. I feel like I have done it in the past in previous episodes, but maybe not specific enough. But I now identify with where my trauma began. And so I'm sure that there may have been some trauma that I don't remember as a child, but the things that I do remember, I can see now how it affects me as an adult. So one thing is I grew up as an only child. So that's going to sound crazy to say that that's a traumatic experience, but it really, really can be, especially when a lot of your peers, I think all of my peers, if I'm not mistaken, had a sibling or at least another child in the house. So a lot of times that is great for like refuge, someone to go to, someone to confide in, someone to console you. And this is a little bit different from those who've had siblings in the house and maybe there was a lot of bickering and a lot of chaos, but there was still someone somewhat of your level or at least a child in the home. So I didn't have that. Growing up, I grew up as an only child. My mom had me at 19. So definitely one of those you grow with your child type experiences. I know that personally because I had my first child at 19 and I believe that I grew with him. But anyway, just to kind of dive in a little bit on that and how I became a dismissive, avoidant attachment style, now secured, I could see where a lot of my abandonment issues, my neglect and rejection came from. I grew up in a time and an era where children were to be seen and not heard. So the way kids now today can express themselves and even talk back or state their opinion and say no if they want to, I didn't come from that era. I came from a time where you did as you were told, and whether it was right, wrong, or indifferent, you didn't have a say in that. And so that is a little bit traumatic in itself, because it teaches you that you cannot speak up for yourself. It teaches you that you can knowingly know that you're being taken advantage of, but you have to be respectful and you have to stay in a child's place. So a lot of other traumas usually are happening during this phase, and I would say between about 1 year and 7 years old. A lot of sexual trauma happens at that time, a lot of emotional trauma, a lot of physical trauma, and a lot of verbal trauma happens at that age because you can't speak out. I've spoken with numerous women who have had sexual trauma and have been unable to, at that point in time, tell someone, either out of fear that that person would attack their family or them, or because they didn't believe that their family would believe them. And there's going to be infinite reason as to why they would think that. And it's so crazy because when I think about some of the experiences that I've had, which were not sexual, just the experiences themselves, you as a child have to determine what you can say and how you can say it, or even if to say it at all. And that's a lot for a child to think of. I remember one time I was in elementary school, I think maybe 2nd or 3rd grade. And, in elementary school, usually when boys like you, they fight you. They attack you, they beat on you, they pull your hair, they tear your dress. They do all those different things because they are dealing with an emotional trauma themselves. They're having these emotions of liking and they don't know how to interact. So that's from whatever experience they're experiencing in their homes. If they're not seeing romantic involvement or interactions, and maybe they're seeing a dad that beats on their mom, then they would think that if I like a girl, I should hit her or attack her as well. We don't tie those things in, but it's not organic or just natural for a boy to just beat on a girl that he likes. He's seen that somewhere and he thinks that that is the response to that particular emotion. But I never figured it was a guy, a young boy. I think he was in the same grade as me, and I hated him. I know hate is a strong word, but for a child back then, I hated him. He taunted me. He just seemed to be everywhere that I went. If he wasn't trying to sit near me in class, thankfully we had assigned seats, so the teacher would always ask him to move, but he would follow me like in the hall or in the almost like outside of the girls' bathroom. And I could remember like hiding in the stairwell or doing little things to kind of avoid him. And I never thought to tell a teacher. I never thought to tell a teacher that I was being harassed, which is a little traumatic because I am dealing with an adult issue, because there are adult women who have been stalked and harassed, and even them trying to figure out the proper way, whether it's to get the police involved or put a restraining order. Here I am, probably 6 or 7, trying to avoid this student that just would not let up. And so I remember one day, and him crushing on me just seemed to come out of nowhere. I don't know how I ended up on his radar, but I did. But I remember I lived across the street from the school, so not even a block away across the street. This was in New York. So our backyard to the projects that we lived in, which was the playground, all I had to do was walk through the playground, through the parking lot, and cross the street was the back of the school, which is where we would line up before entering the school. And I remember him asking to walk me home. And me being terrified, I wanted to say, no, absolutely, you cannot. But scared that he would attack me if I did. So I remember taking a long way home. And I'm telling you, I live across the street from school. So I went out through the front door instead of the back door, which would have been an immediate direct connection to my building. But I went out the front and walked all the way around, just hoping that maybe he would think that I lived too far and decided not to continue strolling with me. But he did. I don't remember what he talked about. I just remember thinking like, I need this day to come to an end. And I was a latchkey kid. So it wasn't even like I could walk him home and then my mom could run him off. I had to figure out how to get rid of this boy. And so we walked and we got to my building and I kind of paused like, we're here. And he says, no, I'm going to walk you up to your apartment. I was scared. It's crazy because, now I'm looking at it as a kid. There probably wasn't really much that he could do. We were in elementary school, but you'd be surprised what these kids learn and know to do or think to do. And so, I didn't even take the elevator. I told him the elevator didn't work and I took the stairs. I was just kind of stalling, I think it was. I was just hoping he'd get tired and not want to go up the stairs. And I realized that being in the stairwell probably was no safer than being in the elevator. But, this is my childhood brain rationalizing how to avoid what is actually happening. So we got up. I lived on the 4th floor. So we got up to the 4th floor. And my apartment was one of the first apartments when you go through the corridors. And I stuck the key in and then I turned around like, I'm here, like, you can leave. And he was like, no, let me come in your place. I can't come in. I was like, no, my mom is not going to be okay with that. I can't let nobody. He's like, how's your mom going to know? She's not going to know unless you tell her. Which was a good point. But I was like, yeah, but I just kind of don't want to get in trouble. He's like, just open the door. And then I remember thinking, he's going to do something to me. And then he paused and he said, if I can just use the bathroom, I'll use the bathroom and then I'll leave. And we were in a little small 1-bedroom apartment. So you literally could stand at the doorway and see the entire apartment, like literally, like in the doorway, bathrooms right here, bedrooms right here, living room is right there, like all in eye view. So it wasn't a whole bunch of strolling and things like that you have to do. But, and my mom doesn't know this to this day. Like I never told her, like it's so crazy because I wouldn't have a problem telling her it now, but it's just so crazy that I've held this all that time. And so I remember opening the door and kind of like praying to God, like, oh Lord, please don't let nothing happen to me. And so he came in and I believe that at that age I was aware of sex. I think not specifically, but enough to know that somebody could force it on you, but not enough to know like the details of sexual assault, I would say. But like, you just have that intuition that this could really, really go wrong. And I wish there was another way to avoid this. And so many might say you should have just told him no, or you should have just maybe chanced it and see what he was going to say or see what he was going to do. But at that time, I didn't think to do so. I probably was struggling with people pleasing. And so I let him in. And so he came in and he used the bathroom. And I remember he was in there for a little while. And I remember thinking, he's stalling. He's trying to figure out what to do next. And so when he came out the bathroom, he was like, oh, okay. I was like, yeah, but you have to go because my she usually about to come in right about now. And so I don't want her to catch you here. Like, it was like a good idea to say, oh my gosh, my mom. And so he was like, oh, okay. And I was like, all right, I'll see you tomorrow. And he left and I closed the door. And I remember just like feeling so, I don't know, like he was gone. He left and nothing happened. But there was still a whole lot of anxiety about that, about what could have happened. And I remember thinking to myself, the next time I'm going to avoid that situation. And even now, I don't know what I would have came up with if he decided to walk me the next day or the day after. But for some reason, I'm going to just say prayer. He never asked again. He never bothered me again after that either. So I'm not sure why that was. I'm just going to say the Lord answers prayers. But if I could think about it now, what I would have liked me to have done was tell my mom. I would have liked to have told my mom, this little boy followed me home. I didn't want him to, but I didn't know how to tell him no. But I also didn't want to disappoint my mom, right? I didn't want her to think that I was irresponsible coming home by myself and that I didn't follow the rules, that no one can come in. And there was, I think I was more concerned about the greater punishment of her finding out than trying to protect myself from that situation happening again. And again, these are all traumatic experiences because as a kid, you can't see from the outside in, right? When you're in it and you're experiencing it and it's a new experience, you only can do what you're mature enough to do. And I remember thinking like, man, what if this happens every day? Is he going to try something a little bit more each and every time? And like for a week after that, when I tell y'all I was trying to avoid him like the plague, like it was insane, but it almost seemed unnecessary because it just died off. Like he stopped seeking me. He stopped harassing me. I don't even know what that was about. But I say all that to say it's moments like that develop a child's personality, whether it's them being very open or shut off, very bubbly or, reserved. It's these moments like this that happen. And the only thing that I could say is that was a moment of neglect. That was a moment that my mom, of course, was outside of her control because she was at work. But because I was home by myself, that's a form of neglect. I was definitely underage because I was in elementary school. I don't know what's the legal age in New York to be able to be home by yourself, but I would say probably second or third grade probably isn't old enough. But that was an experience that back then I would have wished that I could have avoided if my mom was home, right? Because I would be thinking when I get home and I'm going to let my mom know this little boy's outside and she's going to check him and put him in place and I won't have that problem again. But not having her there definitely gave anxiety to all the things that could potentially happen in her absence until she gets home. And it also made me question what was within my control. Why was there a fear to reject him? Why was there a fear to tell him no? What did I think was going to happen? Those type of experiences mold and shape us. A little while later, I had another experience, but it was a little bit different. My mom had this rule where nobody could come in our home. So when she was not home, I could not have any company, which I respected. And I could not answer the door. And I believe the phone, or I think I could answer the phone. But we had a neighbor, and our neighbor at the time had a niece that flew in from Puerto Rico, and she was living with her for a little bit. And so my neighbor had daughters that were on age with me, and I used to hang out with them. In fact, she had like 6 kids. But I used to hang out with her 2 younger daughters, and she had this niece. And I want to say that the niece at that time probably was about 17 or 18, which seems super old to somebody that's like 6 or 7. But I remember one time I was home and my mom was at work. I think it was like the weekend. And I won't say her name. Not that it even really matters. But I remember she came and knocked on the door. Now, my neighbors could come over. Like, the kids could come over and I could play with them. It just couldn't be anybody strange or anybody new. And so she came over randomly and she asked me what was I doing? And I was like, oh, just kind of nothing, just hanging out, watching TV. So she's kind of like walking through the apartment and she went in our bedroom and started going through like my mom's closet, and she's like, oh man, your mom got some bad clothes. Oh wow, this outfit is cute, this is cute, that's cute. So I'm just flattered, like, yeah, my mom really do have nice things. I mean, back then my mom was super trendy, so I wasn't surprised. And then she kind of started going through the drawers and stuff. And lo and behold, what I did not know was that our rent money was in that drawer. I had no clue. But apparently she spotted it. So she saw it and she was clever. And she said, hey, I got a great idea. She says, let's make some cupcakes for your mom. I'm like, yes, I'm a kid. That's a great surprise. And it's cupcakes. Absolutely, I want to do that. So I'm like, we don't have cupcake stuff. She says, no problem. Go downstairs. She named another neighbor. She said, ask her if she has eggs and flour and all this stuff. And I'm like, okay, cool. I'll be right back. And so I run downstairs. I go to that neighbor, which most of the stuff the neighbor didn't have. I don't even think we had muffin pans to even make a cupcake. But anyway, so by the time I got back upstairs with some of the items ready to bake, she was like, hey, listen, I gotta go. Something just came up. I'm leaving right now, but I'll be back and we'll make it at a later time. She says, but whatever you do, don't tell your mom I was here. Otherwise, it's going to ruin the surprise. And I'm like, okay. She was like, promise me you can't tell her I was here until I come back and we'll make them and we'll surprise her. And I'm like, okay, cool. She leaves and I'm home. I'm chilling. A little while later, I decide I'm going to go to the park. So I go a couple of blocks down the street. I go to the park and I'm on the swings. And I swear to y'all, my mom, I was at the back of the park. Like, if you ever been to New York parks, you know, like there's sections and there's like a swing section, there's a monkey bar, like there's different sections. And so I was at the back of the park where the swings were. But the parks are usually like gated. I don't know how tall these fences go, but they're like gated. So there's just like an opening that you come in. And so, excuse me, my mom came to the entrance of the park. And I swear to y'all, she yelled my name and I could hear her at the back of the park. You know how you get that eerie feeling like something is wrong? So she yelled my name and it was like my swing stopped in midair as I was swinging and it just froze. And I knew something was wrong. So I get off the swings and I go jogging to her and I'm like, hey. And she was like, who was in our house? She was like, who was in our apartment? Somebody was in our apartment. I want to know who was in our apartment. And it's so crazy because I didn't hesitate. I was just like, so-and-so was in there. And she was like, she stole our rent money. She did what? She was like, she was in our bedroom. I don't know if you know that. And I think my mom was assuming that I might have been someplace else because there's no way I would lead her in the bedroom by herself. But anyway, and I went in my drawer and our rent money is gone. And my heart sunk. First of all, because I knew it was about to be on and popping. So needless to say, I definitely got dealt with. But in addition to that, I felt so betrayed. I was just like, even at that age, I understood the tactic. And I told my mom, I said, I left her there to go get the stuff to make you some muffins, to make some cupcakes. And even as I was telling her, I was like, she set me up. That's a trauma by itself. To allow someone into your space, to trust them, and to have them manipulate you, manipulate your innocence, take advantage of you. And now, I mean, hey, you got a price to pay. And there was a price to pay. I paid it, and so did she. If y'all want to hear how my mom handled her, no, you know what? I'm not even going to tell it because let me just say, yeah, if she ever did it again, it wouldn't be to my mom. That is for certain. My mom got her lick back. She didn't get the money back, but she got her lick back. And thankfully, no charges were pressed. No jail time was served. But again, these are the type of situations and experiences that happen. And it changes us. It changes us. I learned that just because someone offers to do something, it may not be really sincere. It may not be with good intentions. So that would make you close off. That would make you lack trust. That would make you be standoffish. A lot of the characteristics that I ended up having as I reached adulthood. And so when I say childhood trauma, it isn't always directly from the parents, but sometimes the absence of that parent or parents creates the vulnerability for you to be mistreated. And so in those situations, both of those situations, it was a one and done lesson for me. I will say that. I didn't have to run into that time and time again before I got it. But that's just the tip of the iceberg of experiences that I've had that have made me a different type of adult. There's something about identifying these childhood traumas as an adult and linking them to your triggers and understanding, oh, that's why when somebody says something or they're about to do something or they move a certain way, that's why I respond the way that I do. That's why I feel the way that I feel. Like once you start to bridge the connections, oh my gosh, like it's a breath of fresh air for one, because emotions can have you so congested that you can't breathe, like you feel like you're suffocating, right? It's like this whirlwind of emotions coming up because something happened and people think you're crazy. They think you're spazzing, you're overreacting, and really you're just been triggered. You're responding to the triggers. So it is so important, guys. I tell y'all with every episode about taking that assessment test, because you really get to hone in on who you are and why. And then you get to adopt a new mannerism, a new response, a new emotion for the person that you really are, not just who you've become. It's definitely safe to say that knowing your emotional attachment style is going to break a lot of barriers in relationships that you formerly have, relationships that you will later form, and even relationships that you need to end. But before I tell y'all all my business, I'm going to go ahead and get myself together to get up out of here. You know why? Because it's getting late and I know y'all ready for me to go home. Even though I'm not ready to leave, I'm going to go ahead and go. And y'all already know what I'm going to say. Like, subscribe, and comment. No, that's not what I was going to say, but I got to remember to remind y'all. So make certain that you are sharing this. If you think this video or any of the other episodes could be helpful to someone that you love, please make sure that you share this video. Also, to give me a story, just a little brief scenario where you know that that particular experience changed you, even if it was just a little bit. Okay, but for real, you know what I'm going to say. Until next time, because I hear my ride. Bye, loves. Now, if you enjoyed this episode of the Hardened Healed Podcast, go ahead and subscribe, share with a friend, and turn on your notification button so that you don't miss an episode.